Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if this is the first time you're clicking on me because you saw something that intrigued you in the title of this video. And this, frankly, is a potentially controversial topic, so I want to put my apologies up front and my usual caveats. I don't consider myself any kind of master expert teacher, anything like that. I've just had a lot of experience, and hopefully I can pass along something useful, interesting from said experience and recent experimentation explorations. I also never want to contradict anything that you are personally being taught, practicing, studying, whatever. All right. And this, as I said, it's kind of a topic of controversy for practitioners of traditional Japanese style swordsmanship. Now, on the bigger theme, I have been promising you guys crossover content. If you've been watching my channel, you know I've got a long history, experience in traditional Chinese and Japanese swordsmanship that I've been kind of reviving as, physical therapy rehabilitation in the last several years, and also in the last 2.5 years, diving heavily into something that's new for me, which is HEMA, European style swordsmanship. And one of the reasons why you haven't seen a lot of content lately is because I've been training pretty hard, trying to absorb as much, basically as fast as my body can handle it as it's starting to get, stronger. You see, I'm not in my brace right now, so things are getting better. Swordsmanship is great physical therapy. Let's get that out of the way. And it is a preferred form of exercise for me. I might talk about that in some other videos. But when I practice European style swordsmanship, I immediately compare it to the swordsmanship styles I already know, the traditional Japanese and the Chinese. Look at the similarities, look at the differences, and there are a lot of similarities in techniques and tactics with a lot of differences and different flavors of the same. And I found some very interesting crossovers. So what I'll be doing is I will be applying some of the European weapons to some of the Japanese and Chinese styles that I use and see how those go, and then I'll apply Japanese and Chinese weapons to some of the European styles and see how that goes. And I have to say, it has really, really deepened my understanding of all of it. So that's why I plan to do some more content in this area. But I wanted to start with something just kind of a little odd and random, but it just struck me as an interesting video topic. I'm going for the clicks. All right, that's a little shameless self-promotion here. The topic is Chiburi, which you can see in the title. So if you are familiar with or a practitioner of traditional Japanese swordsmanship that's around sword drawing kata, you know that pretty much every style has the same sequence of actions in the kata, where you start from this particular sword draw, and then you do a certain sequence of attacks, actions, parries, cuts, thrusts, whatever, against a visualized target opponent. And then you do Chiburi, which is a ritual of shaking the blood and gore off your blade before you then do a particular technique for resheathing and closing the form. Now, there's a lot of controversy around Chiburi, and I'm kind of in that camp where, practically speaking, it doesn't really function effectively for its stated purpose. Now, I've seen specifically one really tragic video, at least tragic to me, where some Japanese masters were invited over and did a little informal myth busting where they stuck their handmade traditional Shinken Nihonto, maybe even heirloom swords, dipped it quick into pig's blood, and at an expert level did the kata Chiburi that they do. And while they're just sitting there looking at how much that did not get the blood off, their swords corroded. All right, that made me cringe. That made me feel really bad. And every time I watch anybody practicing like Battojutsu, where you're doing the kata while you're cutting targets, and I think you're cutting something that's like wet, like water bottles or wet, sticky, sappy plant matter, or yes, tatami that's been soaked, and then I see you just shake your blade off and then resheath it, that also makes me cringe, because I am wondering what you're carrying that's still on that blade, and also that you're carrying into your saya. That could then very rapidly cause corrosion if you're not dealing with that quickly. So even though it's not part of the formal kata, I will always carry some kind of cloth or rag or something on me, oilcloth, that I can always quickly clean my blade off and do a really good thorough job of it, probably re-oil it in the process before I put it back in the saya. And I'm specifically thinking now about Eric Hussein, who does that. He's always got the thing right there with him to wipe his sword off before he puts it away. I think that is very smart if you care about your swords. Is it traditional to the kata? No. However, one of the things I have heard often about the function of Chiburi is it's not just about that. It actually rolls into the overarching Zanshin, the mental focus, the situational awareness. That while you're doing that movement, you are still focused on the combat situation, the threat. You're not, even though it looks like you're getting done, you're not done. Even into the resheathing, you're not done. You're ready to resume if you need to. The whole practice is usually about that awareness and that reaction and that response throughout the entire kata. More important in many ways than the actual techniques. So, there are many, many different styles of doing this, from, the famous flip, which I actually can't do because I don't practice because I don't like it. A lot of them tend to involve some sort of cutting or flipping action that usually, depending on where your technique ended you, at the end of that sequence, that moves you down kind of diagonally or off to the side to what I would call, in general terms, a low outside position, right? Now, how much movement is involved in that, if it's a big movement or a small movement, and we'll talk about that in the demonstrations here. And you might end up with your sword, canted more forward or canted more horizontally, or a little bit more to the side or a little bit more in front, depending on your style. Edge turn more to the side, edge turn slightly more downwards. Again, so many different styles, so many different techniques. But it made me think about, okay, what does that look like when I'm also in HEMA mode? So what I want to do is take a look at what this could look like in a completely different context. Thinking about it more as a ready position, a guard position, or one of the things that you deal with in fencing a lot is a disengagement ready guard position. And how does that function with a variety of swords? What does Chiburi look like if it's not blood cleaning, but maybe still something effective? So I'm going to go outside. There's not going to be any sound, so you're just going to see me moving through stuff. I've got this endless construction project next door that you're probably going to hear hammering and sawing. Let's see what I got. Wait, before I go outside, I realize I better set the parameters for this little experiment so you know what to look for. I'm going to use two common combinations in my regular training rotation. Now, I'm not going to attribute these to any particular Ryu or master. One, because there's similar combinations across several that I've seen, and the other one, obviously, as I mentioned many times, I am not any kind of master, expert, teacher, representative of any Koryu. This is just part of my normal training routine, and I figured it'd be a good sample to compare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two different basic combinations within the Chiburi action, and then try to replicate it to the best of my ability and, well, how these different swords function. And hopefully you can see some similarities and obviously some differences, and then tell me what you think. Combination one. And they're certainly not all going to start from a draw, because they don't all do that very well. But if they don't start from a draw, I'm going to start with the sword basically low to the inside. Okay, so close to this location, because there's a lot of different postures like that in HEMA. But combination one is going to be a diagonal cut upwards to the outside. And then I'm going to pass my left foot forward. So my left foot's going to step forward, and then I'm going to cut diagonally to the outside, downward. Then I'm going to step the left foot back and do that clearing action. And I'm not going to do a resheathing, because most of these swords don't do that well at all. And then I'm going to do the second combination. And again, it might be from the sheath, or it might be simply from having the sword more over here. Second combination, I'm going to cut, well, not such a rising cut, but still to the outside high, a little bit more horizontal. I'm not going to pass the left foot forward. I'm going to keep my right foot forward, use sliding gathering steps to advance, to cut diagonally downwards to the inside. Then I'm going to slide retreat back, do the clear. Let's see how it looks. All right, so what'd you think? Let me know in the comments below. I noticed as I'm editing the footage, there seemed to be something weird that happened with my tablet camera outside. I don't know if it was a dirty lens of the focus or whatever, but it gave me kind of that halo and made my forehead look unusually large. But yeah, I didn't want to repeat it again. I thought I got some good takes out there. And now I'm a little tired because I did a lot of takes in a row, more than you're obviously seeing in the video, and I was kind of fading there at the end. Also, if you're eagle-eyed, you might have noticed that I did cheat with the footwork on the longsword because I did what made sense based on how I moved with that weapon. And I don't really think you got a really good view of what I was doing with the rapier head-on like that versus seeing it from the side. But I wanted to keep that view consistent for comparison. Now, you probably also can see where my skill levels are different with swords I've been working with longer than others. So it is something I'm still working on. It's a work in progress. But I feel like, as just in this brief experiment, that the low guard position that I'm falling back to consistently at the end of every single one of these sequences, that's actually a tactically excellent position for a lot of follow-up options. And if you want me to talk about that a little bit more, well, there are a lot better swordsmen, a lot better swordsmen on YouTube who have already expounded on it. But if you want me to take a crack at it, I'm willing to try. It might be a follow-up to that video I did way back when on high guard and what you can do out of that, which I probably think I need to redo at this point. But speaking of this content, again, what'd you think of it? Did it make sense? Was it useful? Is it something you'd like to see more of? Let me know, and I'll try to get right on that. But otherwise, before this gets way too long, as usual, thanks to everyone for watching, following the channel, subscribing, sharing the videos, our conversation in the comments. And I do hope to see you back for, well, whatever follows.